Let's cut the bullshit. We've got straight up marketing advice. You should use it.
Just drop the jargon.
Adam and Simon's Bullshit Busters.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Adam and Simon Bullshit Busters. I'm Simon Batchelor.
I'm Adam Bastock.
And this week we are going to be talking about the answer to the question that we get quite often, which is, should I be doing marketing myself or should I be outsourcing my marketing? So we have quite a few different sort of people ask us this from different sizes of business in different situations. So we wanted to try and give you a sort of overview of why outsourcing might be the right thing for you to be doing, but also why you might want to pause off on that outsourcing decision. So to get us started with that thinking, Adam, do you want to give us a quick rundown of the sort of three main ways that you can outsource your marketing?
Yeah, so I think the three kind of main ones are either your internal team. So if you've got either an employee or kind of like a VA, maybe you work very closely with, who's doing quite a few different tasks that you might want them to kind of just give you a bit of supportive help. Or if you have got like a more internal team that you're employing, someone dedicated in-house. Then you've got freelancers, so typically slightly more specialist people who will be doing very specific tasks for you in a very skilled way. And then third is the slightly bigger, more scary one, which is an agency where you are outsourcing basically everything. So I'd say the first two of those, the common theme is that you are fairly in control. You're giving a bit of direction. The third one, it tends to be a slightly less equal relationship where the agency might be coming up with more ideas for you and coming back to you for approval rather than the other way around.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, we've been running an agency for 18 years now, and for the clients we work with, they are looking to us to basically do the whole thing. So essentially, they run the business day to day. They have a team, and they're turning over anything from probably 150,000 up, I would say, is probably about the size that you want to be looking at marketing. And the reason I say that is because in general, you should be looking at around 10% of your turnover as your budget for marketing. So anything less than 15 grand a year, a good agency can't do anything for less than 15 grand a year, really. There are bits and pieces they can help you with, but you'll get much better value from a freelancer. So I think that might help as a barometer for some people watching, listening. If you're around the 150 grand plus mark, then maybe an agency is worth having a chat with. But the nearer you get to 200, the more value an agency is going to deliver for you. And that purely comes down to an agency can put more people on your job, and essentially what the agency is doing is they're basically saying, right, let us take care of all of your marketing for you. So all of the content creation, the website, the conversion, the funnel, the ideas, all of that process is being managed. And for a lot of our clients, that is exactly what they need. They don't have an internal marketing department at all. We just basically become that department. However, I'm also conscious that a lot of people are thinking, that's a lot more than I'm on now. Yeah. I'm nowhere near that. And I think then is where this question really becomes an interesting one, because you've got this balance, I think, of the seesaw of like, well, is it worth me putting the time in and saving the money on outsourcing it, or is it going to be better value for me to spend time on the business and just outsource that? And how far do I go with outsourcing? So I mean, have you sort of got any thoughts around, what the advantages of outsourcing are versus the disadvantage at that sort of smaller end of the scale?
Well, I think 'cause I'm kind of going through this process a little bit myself, where I'm trying to just outsource slightly more work. And the main reason I'm doing that is two reasons. One is to kind of free my time up for other earning work. So as long as I can hire someone else in for less than I'm earning, then it tends to work out positively in that sense. But second, and the thing I've started to notice recently for having done this, is momentum. In the fact that if I've got 2 or 3 other people who are, doing some kind of outsourced task, whether that's marketing or admin or whatever it is, it means that frees up time for me to do other things. and therefore in a week I actually effectively have 15 days in a single week to do work rather than just 5 if I've got 2 people working with me for those 5 days. Not that I'm at that level yet, but that is a kind of concept of the multiplier effect, I think. I think that's the main thing to focus on, and a really quick kind of way to understand on if it's worth you outsourcing some of this work is if your hourly rate, if you are working on that, and that's a whole separate podcast and why this is a bad idea, but if you value your time at, say, £50 an hour, but you can hire a bookkeeper for £20 an hour to do all of your accounts for you, then suddenly that makes a lot of sense because you're making £30 profit for every time you're not doing bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Because you can just take out 2 days of your time a month and hire the bookkeeper instead, and then you can work those 2 extra days.
Yeah.
That's where I think it becomes very powerful, and as soon as you shift your thinking to that, in terms of your kind of time value, making the decisions on when to do it becomes a lot clearer. I think the second question to come on to is more on the marketing and when it kind of whether it's worth it or when it works.
Well, I think the idea of time on the business and time in the business, which you just made there, is exactly one that should be at the forefront of your decision process. If you have a list of 20 things to do every week and you're getting 5 done, then you need to outsource something. And that might be bookkeeping. In fact, if you are listening to this and you're doing your own bookkeeping, unless you're a bookkeeper, you need to outsource that. There are no excuses. Just do it now. Pause the podcast and outsource your bookkeeping. You don't need to think about marketing. The time and wisdom that comes with a bookkeeper is paid off tenfold. Anyway, without doing any more plugging for bookkeepers, that's just a great example of a task that people seem for some reason to spend hours on. But there are other things like, data entry, for example, and data entry might be more of your job than you realise if you're having to, take a load of information from one system and put it into another. That is something that someone else could be doing, checking in. There's some great companies out there who can set you up with VAs, as they're called, virtual assistants. But I think focusing it back round to marketing, the main thing I think we need to start with is the ideas and the creative element of your business. So what you will be outputting as your marketing is in essence the story of your business. It's the why you do what you do. It's how your product and service are going to help the customers that you want to attract. And you're essentially trying to start the conversation between you and a customer. So if you're not part of that initial idea and conversation, it's going to sound like someone in another country that you're outsourcing this to perhaps has just gone onto Google and typed in how to get more coaching clients. And you will get 10 blogs or something written by someone who has no skin in the game. They don't know who you are. There's no passion. There's no story. There's nothing there. It just is generic waffle. And I think this is where some people kind of struggle because they're like, well, I don't want to outsource it because I don't want it to feel, unauthentic, or it's not going to be right. It's not going to feel right. And I think that's because they're assuming they're going to be able to let go of that initial idea. And I think maybe a better way to think about it is like, well, you come up with the idea and then someone else turns it into marketing material. But you can't get away from the fact that you need to be coming up with the ideas initially until you can afford to hire a creative agency to do it for you.
And I think looping it back to the first point here, it's far easier for you to basically outsource your other tasks to free up time. So you've got more time to think about the thing than it is for you to try and outsource the doing of that more complex marketing thing. So if you take like emails, for example, it's probably far easier, or like LinkedIn posts is probably a really good one. It's far easier for you to outsource 2 hours of your time doing bookkeeping so that you can spend that time scheduling in LinkedIn posts than it is to try and outsource the LinkedIn post writing itself.
Yes.
Because they cannot emulate your person and your kind of speech and everything like that as easily as someone can basically emulate you doing paperwork. It's a terrible example that's fallen apart. But I think you're right though. Yeah, it's easier to extract the kind of the doing of the working on the working in the business than it is to extract working on the business.
Yeah, so I think the idea is like if you spend 2 hours fulfilling a customer service or product, then that's great. That is the do. That's doing the do. However, if you spend 2 hours writing a quote that wins you another customer, then that could be worth thousands. So if you take what that time is worth, it's worth thousands. So this is why that kind of connection between time and money is often misjudged. So for example, if we write an agency quote, if we spend 4 hours writing an agency quote that's worth £15,000-20,000, that half day is worth £20,000.
Yeah.
Now if I say, right, I'm going to fill in a spreadsheet of all of my expenses and where I've got receipts for all this stuff, that's costing the business £20,000. Suddenly, hiring someone to do this is a no-brainer. If we flip that back down to someone who's making, writing, doing all of their own marketing content, if writing you a blog and then posting it on LinkedIn wins you another client that's worth, say, £1,500, then let's say on average your blogs win you a client a month, for example, and you write 4 blogs, then each blog, let's say it's £2,000 to make this math I'm about to do easier. So you win a £2,000 client from writing 4 blogs. So each blog is worth £500. How much can you afford from £500 to spend to pay someone else to get it in front of those people, right? So if you write the blog, then you send it to a copywriter, and then you get a VA to put it into Hootsuite or Buffer or Agorapulse or whatever, and blast it out in front of your whole audience, send your emails, newsletter, do all of that. If that costs you £50 per blog, that's 10%. That's a perfectly acceptable cost to win a client. So I think you've got to... I know not everybody likes the finance chat and not everybody can deal with the numbers, but you've got to start thinking about this element of what's worth more. You know, do you have a document or a note on your phone with 50 blog ideas that you still haven't written? Or are you the kind of person who doesn't know even where to start with that?
I think a good place to start on that, and this is something that I've been working with Emma Mill Sheffield on, is the kind of whole idea of just sitting down at the start of a week and kind of splitting out the tasks you're doing into what do I want to do, what do I have to do, and what don't I want to do. But then they kind of either have to do. And there's a more complex way you can split it down. But I think that's if you can just start the week and go, well, here's 10 tasks that I don't want to do. Okay, maybe 5 of them you do have to do because it's your personal thing, but then maybe 5 of them are just admin stuff that someone else can quite easily be taught in an hour or two on what you do. That's a really good starting point to then start shifting those out. I think just very quickly as well on the second point that we've not really discussed yet around the concerns over outsourcing marketing completely is around moving yourself away from the customer a little bit. In the fact that you as a business owner, especially if you're a small business owner in that kind of initial startup phase where you're not working with agencies, you're probably the closest point of contact with your customer base. Like I deal personally directly with my clients who are business owners, and they're the people who pay me money, essentially. Not the marketing managers or anything else. And there's no point in me trying to get an account manager in to deal with them because it's just pointless. It's not gonna work. Therefore, me trying to install more kind of marketing points between me and the business owner isn't going to be helpful because I'm going to start losing sight of what they actually need and what they want.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm in those pitching meetings or in those calls, it's not really a pitching meeting, it's just me talking to them and kind of educating them and stuff. And as soon as I stop listening to them in terms of what their problems are, why they want to buy SEO, why they don't want to buy SEO, all that stuff, that makes it far more difficult. So the things that I'm outsourcing aren't marketing really. It's mostly around admin side so that I can have more time building a connection with my kind of customer base so that then I can spend just more time doing that and become better at it and spend more time kind of on the business.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think you're freeing up your time to do more high value tasks that will in the long run have a greater return for the business. So I think sort of in summary, it would, the sort of longish answer to the question, should I be doing marketing myself, is like, well, yes, but not all of it, is how I would respond. So it's like, yes, you should be the seed of the idea. And even if that is just, I had this question the other day, and my response to it would be these 5 bullet points. And you then send it to a writer, a copywriter, who then creates, a 500 to 1,000 word blog, and then you turn that into a video because you need to be the face of that business in the situation we've been discussing, and then you pass that to an editor who creates the assets, and then you've got a blog, you've got the assets, and you can use a scheduling tool, and someone else can take it from there and just turn it into outward facing content that is sent to your audience. Essentially, you don't have to do that bit, because that's the bit that is almost at bookkeeping level. It's not worth you doing. So if you can get all of that automated or dealt with, then you can spend the time coming up with engaging blog ideas, making cool videos, that are bits of content that need your face and your brain. And then once your face and brain have done the work, someone else can deal with it. And I think that's probably the point where you should also then start to talk to someone who can help you understand what other tasks in your business you could be freeing up.
Exactly.
But I think maybe a time management one, maybe we should get Emma back on to do another time management one, because I think we've got a lot to say on it. But
well, I think it's, as you say, kind of it quickly goes from marketing to being like, well, marketing's not really the important thing here. It's about doing this for your entire business process. And especially for a smaller thing, like, why would you hire a freelancer to do your Google ads for you? Because if you're doing that, you need to be turning over a certain amount of money anyway. So I think there's a whole separate conversation there around kind of marketing spend and what's needed. But I think one thing I've learned from this podcast is me rambling and then you cleaning up that mess of words on the floor into coherent messages has been very beneficial. But I think it is just, don't think about outsourcing your marketing. I think the problem probably lies elsewhere within your business. Outsource that instead, because it's probably far easier.
Excellent. Well, I think that pretty much summarises what we've got to say on as the answer to that question. So thank you very much for listening and watching. If you could give us a follow on your favourite podcast app of choice, that would be amazing. It really helps other people find and discover us. If you're watching on YouTube, then hit that subscribe button below, because again, that really does help us out as well. And if you've got a question and you would like to have one of your burning marketing questions answered, then get in touch with us either on LinkedIn is probably the best way to do that. Reach out to us there, ping us your question, and we will happily do a podcast episode in response to it. If you've got any ideas for guests, or you would like to be a guest on the podcast, then again, do reach out on LinkedIn. We are going to be getting back into the studio as soon as we can to get some more guest podcasts going. So we are currently actively looking for guests at the moment. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Just drop the job.
Adam and Simon's bullshit busters.